so psyched to be here all the way from South Africa. I think it's a dream come true. But also, I'm so overwhelmed because this space is held mostly by women. And as an energy reader, I am reading a lot of fire energy. And that is good. So give yourselves a round of applause. Because wow, the flames are here. Hello. And the warrior woman are here. And this is not to say that I'm looking down on any of the masculine energy, because it means that if I'm seeing the fire, then the masculine is holding the ground, so it's grounding the fire. So you're not extinguishing it, but you're holding space for it, which is very good. Now that's the balance of spirituality and ancestral energy, which is what I'm here to talk about. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Philisiwe Diane Makhaye, and Philisiwe means they will be revived in spirit. So, my name was a great prophecy from my great grandfather, and he passed it on to my mother. And 8 months later, I was born. And little did I know that I would be initiated at the age of 12. And ever since then, I have been working as a spiritual healer, a medium, as well as a traditional healer. So I want us to just be free and let loose and allow those who are still trying to find space to sit so that they can sit down and join in on the conversation. Okay, just waiting for one or two people to just find their seats and just place themselves. Okay, I think we're good now. So what I wanted us to talk about today was the sacred chakra, which is our hearts. In Africa, we call it umsamo, which is the family altar. The family altar being the heart. Now, your family altar is your heart. If you do not mind, can you please just place your hands just gently across and touch your heart? That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is your sacred altar. Now, the altar is very important because, as we know it in the universe, there's three altars. The first one being God, which is the universal power. The second one being the universe. And the third one being your sacred heart, which is where your spirit and your ancestral ties lie down or are connected to. And I'm sure that a lot of you are asking yourselves, but how is this possible? It is possible because we are all united in spirit. Spirit transcends. Hence, we are able to feel energies. Hence, we are able to feel deeply. But most of us, our chakras are connected to the heart, and that's what we are not aware of, which is our heart centers. Now, I want us today to go into depth about this family altar and say, what does your altar have, and what is your value system, and what are your principles, and what guides you, and what binds you in this life? Compassion. Do you have enough compassion for yourself? Have you been kind to yourself? It is easy for us to pass on compassion to the next person, and yet it is so difficult for us to have compassion for ourselves. And so for today, I want you to start keeping that in remembrance. In as much as we're here and we joined in spirituality, I want you to stop for a minute, and in this session and in this talk, we focus on you and your heart altar, which is giving passion towards you. Now, the second rules of this family altar is empathy. How often do you have empathy towards yourself? Do you know that if you're operating from an empty field of empty empathy towards yourself, you're unable to transcend and you're unable to connect to your spirituality? You cannot connect if you haven't connected the dots to yourself. And therefore, it is important for you to have compassion as well as empathy for yourself in order for you to connect with your spiritual guides, because your spiritual guides feel your heart before any and everything else. Now, we also need to go into kindness. How often are you kind towards yourself? When was the last time you were kind, genuinely so, to yourself? Besides being a mother, besides being a father, besides being a daughter, besides being a friend, besides being a lover, but just being an individual that is kind to themselves. When was the last time you centered yourself and you gave yourself a bit of kindness? Our guides cannot connect to us if we do not have healthy relationships with ourselves. And that is the most important thing that we need to pay attention to. Our thought patterns, our emotional patterns will always have a way of kicking us out of balance whenever we want to ground ourselves and connect with spirit. Yes, we allow the universal flow. Yes, we allow the flow of nature, but somewhere, somehow, we cause stagnation upon ourselves when we have unhealthy relationships with ourselves. And so, in spirituality and in ancestral healing, we do not often know or understand that we also hold a lot of ancestral trauma. And that ancestral trauma is from generation to generation to generation, and it is passed down onto us. And the one and only way that we are able to actually heal that trauma and be able to feel and flow freely is if we are kind, compassionate, and empathetic towards ourselves. And so now we begin our actual session. But before I do, if anyone is lost or has any question, please do not hesitate to ask me any questions. Just raise up your hand and I'll just answer any specific question that you want me to answer. Now, how do you divine or how do you connect with your ancestors? Light, fire, a candle, which summons them across the universe, which summons them across the planes, the different plane fields. How do you connect with fire and yourself? Your fire, once again, being your heart. So it is important that in every ritual, in every mantra, in every manifestation, in every meditation, you include fire, because fire will always ignite what is in you. As you're sitting across with 1,000 beings transcending in and through out of you, in flow and in sync, because we are all united in spirit in this session. And spirit is actually holding ground for us. And so it is important for us to have the fire to ignite us. But most of you might ask yourselves, where is the fire right now? We've got it in a form of light. We've got it in a form of light. We've got it in a form of our hearts because we are all united and we are centered. And most importantly, this sacred space was opened up with a whole fire festival, which ignited the whole plain fields to hold the medicine festival. So the fire has already been set before us, and the intention has already been set before us, and therefore we are already held by the fire. Are we still on the same page? Still on the same page? Very much so. Tell me when you get lost. Now we move on to the next element, the element being water. Fluidity which flows through you, fluidity which flows through your body, fluidity that purifies you, your thoughts, your mind, your actions, as well as the space around you. If you bring fire and water into one space, not only does it ignite your spiritual guides as well as your ancestral guides, but also it helps to ignite them to ground you. So it keeps you grounded. But the water is enough to bring the clarity. Some of you might suffer from lucid dreams, or you might feel like you don't connect, or often you pray and you have your manifestations and yet there's that sense of lost, or maybe you're still confused about whether or not this is the right path that you're supposed to be on, especially if you are a spiritual woman. But if you start introducing water into every ritual, every ceremony, every cleansing, every manifestation, every prayer in your daily lives, water will bring you that clarity that you need. So all you do is you take a glass of water or a bowl of water and you place it right beside your candle. It not only brings clarity in your dreams, but in your thoughts, in your heart, as well as your ancestral guides. They are able to transcend and come clearly to you in your life, giving you the power of the water goddess in order for you to be able to move easily and flow easily like the rivers in whichever situation that you're going through in your life. Now, we bring on the third element. Some might use crystals, which is earth also, and some might actually use stones. It is always advised, especially from an ancestral point, to bring the mountain spirits which are your grandfather's spirits, which are your masculine spirits, into the feminine energy, which you've already rised up or awakened or evoked through the fire and the water to just balance out your space. Because you don't only just want to be only operating from a feminine energy. And this is for men as well. Remember, as human beings, we are spiritual beings, but we're going through a human experience. And in going through a human experience, it means both man and woman have got masculine and feminine energy. And in all that we do, we need to balance it all the time so that it makes sense to us and we don't always go off balance and feel like something is missing. And to pair these energies together and to pair the energies of your ancestral lining, the universe's lining, as well as spirit, we need to balance it with these elements. I would like you to also start including either a crystal or just a small rock. That's it. It's enough to ground your space. But also, this masculine energy has got enough weight and enough strength to protect your space. Often it's not that you're praying the wrong way or your manifestations are not right or your rituals and your cleansings are not right or your moon paths are not right, but your space is not protected because of familiar spirits. Are you guys familiar with familiar spirits? Maybe I should leave it out there. Is anyone confused on familiar spirits? Okay, quite a couple of people confused. So, as we are in this space, spirits are flowing in and out of us, but familiar spirits are spirits of those who were never called back home. So, for example, I live in the UK and I live in an apartment and I live alone and I do not have children and I'm not married, and one day I happen to pass on. But my family maybe is tied to Africa and they come to the UK, they collect the body, and my burial ceremony is actually held in Africa. But my spirit will forever be trapped in a familiar space, which is the UK. Hence, we call it familiar spirits. These spirits are not collected and cleansed out of familiar spaces that they hold dearly because they spent a lot of time in, or in their moment of life and death, when the body was separating from the spirit refuses to descend as the body is descending, and the spirit actually remains on earth. That's where you'd find people saying, I think my house is a haunted house. Or I think the space that I work in is a haunted space. It's because of heavy, familiar spirits that have never been removed from your space. That's why it is important to always cleanse your space. But even after cleansing your space, sometimes your space can still host familiar spirits, because familiar spirits have a way of going out and also coming back and are attracted to light. And if you're a light worker and a spiritual worker and you practice these rituals religiously, then these spiritual spirits will always have a way of attaching themselves to you like a moth attached to flame. That's what happens. But if you don't have enough light, they come in and out of your life. Or if you're guarded up, they come in and out of your life, just easily so. So to protect your space so that your space is not a haunted space or a space that is overwhelmed by heavy dark energy, you then protect it by placing stones. You don't have to protect it around the house, but just your sacred altar where you usually do your prayer readings or just your manifestations or whatever it is that you believe in, your meditations, you just always have a stone so that you're always grounded. Now we have to move on to wind. A lot of people might ask, how do you harness the wind and keep it in your house? Well, you don't want to blow the house down, so we're not going to do that. But how you balance that is you have a feather, because birds fly, correct? So you have a single feather. A single feather represents wind, the light wind. It represents wind, the heavy winds. It represents your gentle winds. So any particular feather, it doesn't have to be from a guinea fowl or from a geese or a specific bird, as long as it's a feather. It doesn't have to be a long feather. It doesn't have to be a short feather. As long as it's a feather, it will be enough to host the wind and still be able to capture what it needs to capture in the house, because it works just like the stone or the rock. That's why some people would even go as far as having dream catchers in their doors. It was to protect the evil spirits or the familiar spirits from entering into their spaces, because you can protect it using feathers, which represent the wind. And in that, you would have had your complete elements, your thoughts, your emotions, your physical being, your physical space is now protected. Now let's move on to, how do you invite spirit to come into your life, to guide you, to hold you, to give you direction, to give you guidance. This is now where you have to call on to the gods, the goddesses, those that come before you, those that have paved the path for you, those that are regarded as the wisdom keepers in your family bloodline and in your lineage and in your legacy. This is now where you do your shadow work of discovering who you are and where you come from. So, how many of you would know where you come from? I see a couple of hands. Okay, I see a couple of hands. Oh, I see a couple of hands. Okay, so we would start by inviting the maternal. The maternal, because your great grandmothers would always look out for you. When your parents wanted to discipline you, what would the grandmothers say? No, leaving him alone, he's just a child. Oh, stop being so stuck up, it's just a child. Because grandmothers always wanted to protect you. And so you'd want to call those that wanted to protect you, that wanted to nurture you, that always felt deeply for you. And just before they descended, by the way, they became your guardian angels whilst still on earth. So I can already tell we already have one living ancestor in the crowd. Please give her a hand of applause. Yes. Is she your mother or your grandmother? Your mother, yes. She's already your wisdom keeper, so you better hang on dearly to her, you know? And so the wisdom keepers of the family are really the grandmothers, because their prayers, affirmations, and blessings really mean a lot to you. So that's why in Africa we used to say, if something is not going right with your life, go home. And when they say go home, they mean go to your grandmother's house. Don't go to your parents' house. Because when you go to your grandmother's house, she'll just say everything is going to be okay. That on its own, that line is an affirmation. It's validation. It's a blessing. It's a rite of passage. It's all that you need. Just go home. And so if you can, and you still have pieces and items of your wisdom keepers, it would be best, whether it's a scarf, it's an earring, it's a pashmir, it's whatever that you can keep from your wisdom keepers, it's always best to take it. Just take it and keep it with yourself. And if maybe you don't have any personal items from your wisdom keepers, you can often visit them at the grave, you know? So you just go to the cemetery, and when you go there to honor them, you'd bring them what? Light, a candle. A candle so that they're able to awaken. You're not going to evoke any spirits. You're not going to do any mantras. You're not going to chant. No, we're not doing voodoo, but we are awakening them. And we're empowering them. It's always important to make the spirit feel empowered. And therefore, they come to you in empowerment. So you light a candle in them being there and for them to hold space for you. You carry water. You just place the bottle of water and you just start saying whatever it is that is pure and intentional to you, or whatever it is that you feel you need space in or you need help with, and they will be able to transcend and to come to you. Is that clear? Yes, you may ask me a question. What if the maternal line is not okay? I'll teach you how to invite it in your personal altar. I'll go into it. Yeah. Oh, do you want me to answer it now? Now. Oh, you all have problems with mothers who don't have good hearts. God, Jesus, maybe we should have opened with a prayer. Jesus Christ, I should have called the African ancestors. Yo, handarakabasha, sha, these mothers, how dare they? Jesus. Okay, maybe actually we should. Where's Maile to start a song? Actually, maybe we should. It's just that we don't have any drummers. Oh, she's drinking water. Maybe we should, actually. We should do some chanting. Oh, it's for me. Please grab a mic and let's just do a song. Jesus. Oh my God. Are you going to join in on the song? And the reason why I want us to sing is because in Africa we sing when we're happy, we sing when we're angry. We sing when we're sad, we sing when we invite something, we sing to heal. So literally every song has a meaning. So because there's a general consensus of people who've got traumas pertaining to their mothers, okay, we'll just call them the other women, just so that all of us are okay. Is it okay if we call them the other women? Toxic relationships with the other women. Sounds secretive, Nets, like your husband is cheating on you. Relationships with the other woman. Yes, let's go. Okay, so anything. Yes, for the mother. Let's sing anything. I'll flow with you. The same way we were flowing there. I want to sit down now. No, your own song.
Umakhulu madakali maduka.
You can clap if you want to or hum. And Anna, you can join us, please, wherever you're sitting. Thank you.
Umakhulu madakali madurga. Umakhulu madakali madurga.
Thank you, Miley. Sorry for ambushing you. Okay, is the spirit out? Are people feeling okay now? Are we okay about the other woman? Great stuff. Great stuff. So, often our relationships with our mothers fall out not because they do not love us. No. But they fall out because of the relationship that they had with their mothers. Hence, when I started this, I said generational traumas. And I was teaching you about your altar and your physical altar so that you know how to start working on the traumas. Some of them have been through the most with their mothers, but also their mothers were not evil people. They also got it from their mothers. So it gets passed down from one generation to the next generation to the next generation. Also, let's pay attention to the fact that most of our mothers are from a time of patriarchal times, you know, where we were told that women cannot hold space for each other, where women were brought to shame, where women were not given acknowledgement, where women were not validated. Even if you had something to say and someone was willing to hear what you had to say, they would still speak on behalf of you, which would make you feel like your voice is not enough. They would tell your story in their own way and in their own understanding. And that is the reason why some of our mothers were so hard on us, because they didn't understand compassion towards themselves, kindness, and just how to be empathetic and to understand that it's not that they were undeserving of love, but the world and the times in which they were born in, those times were just not favorable times to them. So it's not about you. She projected her hurt and her anger onto you because she didn't know how else to be better or how to be a better mother to you, you know? And some of our mothers are still doing that. They still don't know how to be better versions of themselves because they were never allowed the space and the time to be better versions of themselves. We live in a time where there is medicine festival. This space allows you to dig deep. It allows you to do the work. It allows you to let go. It allows you to flow. But also it allows you to break down and then it builds you up. They were in spaces that just broke them down and left them broken down. And no one ever came back to pick up the pieces. And that's where the problem is. So if the war is inside of you, sometimes it gets so much that all you can see is just war. And you start thinking that you are the war, believing you are the war. And you have to raise what? Warriors and soldiers. So you toughen them up. You say those extra strict things that they need to do. You say the tough love and you do the tough things without even realizing that you're actually breaking your children. And some don't even get to that point, but they isolate. They love from a distant space. Even if you're in the same house, but you still feel that isolation, that abandonment, because they don't know how to hold space for you, how to nurture you, how to love you, because they had to figure it out at an early age and were robbed of their childhood. So probably they're suffering from childhood trauma, and that has nothing to do with you. And that's why when I started, I said, compassion. When was the last time you were compassionate towards yourself? Because if you're compassionate towards yourself, you then start to understand that the world could be collapsing today, but I still need to be kind to myself. The world could be going up in mayhem, but I still need to love myself. I could be going through a heartbreak, but I still need to be compassionate towards myself, and I need to understand. A lot of women also back in the day had to be stuck in relationships that were not fulfilling, relationships that were a constant reminder of how they've failed in life. But did they really fail in love, or did society fail them in life? Because that's what actually happened. And so in society failing them, they have then failed you as a mother. But you don't inhabit that. You let it go. And in how you let it go is you love them unconditionally. A lot of us, I don't think we understand what unconditional love is. There's love and there's unconditional love. Unconditional love means I love you with your flaws. I see them. I do not ignore them. I see them, I recognize them, but I also know that it is beyond me to heal you. So therefore, I love you at a safe and a distant space for myself. That is unconditional love. But when you love someone, you'll sacrifice yourself. Every time they do you wrong, you take it. Every time they do you wrong, you take it, and it hurts you and you feel like it's a you thing. It's not a you thing, it's a them thing. But you don't cut them off. You keep them in your life so that through you remodeling your life and living a better life and being a better version of yourself, at some point they'll come around and they'll see the goodness in you and they'll want to do better as well. Even though because they might be stubborn, they might not want to come and say, hey, how did you get it right? Even though I might be aging, but I still want to get it right and fix our relationship. They might never get to that place where they say that to you, but they'll start wanting to warm up towards you and start acting differently. And if you do happen to have a mother who's willing to listen to you, then have the conversation. Go into storytelling. I feel as though you have a lot that's going on inside of you. And I might not be the right person for you to tell the story to because I'm your child. And you might feel like maybe it's a bit above me, but just know that I understand. That on its own will open a space and ground for your mother to say, actually, I'm not okay. There's a lot that happened, but I'm not okay. But I know I'm going to be okay. Or it might open a door where she says, I'm sorry. It has for other people. Sometimes it's just about opening conversations. And that's just that. That's it. And if you've tried and it has never worked, it's also okay to say, I've done my best and I'm choosing to love myself and I'm going to walk away. And you do the work for yourself, so that when you do receive that call, that devastating call, you know that you are at peace. The last thing that you want is to receive that devastating call and you still have unresolved trauma. And now there's no one to address the trauma with, because now you have to address your trauma in your altar, which is quite difficult sometimes. Because if we go into the altar and you're dealing with a descended parent, now we need to say, let's open up prayers. Prayers of healing, prayers of forgiveness for your generation, for your bloodline, for your ancestral bloodline. You have to start by introducing generations to generations of generations in your altar and start praying a prayer of forgiveness. In you having these prayers or holding these prayers, it helps them to break free and to come through to you. And in that moment, maybe as you're praying or meditating or just holding space in your own altar, you feel the energy, or you feel like you need to cry or you need to scream. In that point and in that moment, you let it go, because then the spirit has arrived, because you've got your elements that are actually holding your altar. So you let it go and you cry. And you cry as much as you can, because your cry is no longer a cry that comes from the inside, but it's from generations of generations of generations. Hence, you're crying right now. It's not you, it's the generations before you. They are crying because this is a topic to them that is very sensitive, because they suffered a lot through their generations. And so right now, they're in this space. Like I said, I see a lot of spirits and a lot of energies, and your spirits are here. And they're saying, we need to heal. We need to purge. We need to release. We need to let go. And they're using you to do that. So that's your call right now. You're called to do that for yourself, for your generations, and for your bloodline, so that moving forward with your children, you do not make the same mistake, because you're not your mother. And she's not you. And you always need to remember that. So, everyone dealing with relationships with their mother, are we on the same page, or do we still have more questions? I don't mind. We can go into it. Are we okay? Answered? Seems like not. This side had picked their hands. Now they're like, well, I'm not so sure about it. So, are you sure, 100% sure, all of you? Okay. Oh, there's a question.
So my mother is still alive. So does that mean that through my relationship with her, I can heal the ancestral trauma, for example, that her mother went through, who's no longer here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It does.
And before that and before that.
Yes, because she's the last wisdom keeper, the last standing wisdom keeper.
Okay.
So it's best that you do it with her, because she's still alive.
Okay.
And from there, you break the cycle and you break the chain of generational trauma, and then you're able to move freely and then create your own pattern.
Okay.
Yes.
And would I, with my own altar, still sort of bring in the power or the spirit of my grandmother?
Yes, you would.
Yeah.
You can. Even if you haven't started with the conversation with your mother, but you can. It doesn't hold you back from not inviting your grandmother. I mean, she did have good attributes. Even your mother did. It's just that most of it, were questionable. But she did have it, you know. So we're not going to override that, you know. So let's give her some credit, you know. So you still invite your great-grandmothers into your altar, regardless of whatever relationship you have with your own mother. You know, you still have to invite them, because they are the nurturers, like I said. You know, so they are quite important to invite into your space, to be able to hold that space, or else you're only going to be operating on your masculine energy. And what happens in women is, if you are operating from your masculine energy, you have problems in your friendships, and you've got problems in your relationships. In your relationships, your personal relationships, you often attract men who are actually operating from their feminine energy. And then you start being the lead in the relationship. So the relationship becomes a burden to you. You must make the decisions. You must tell the guy what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Da, 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 da. There's a problem. You must fix it. You must come up with a solution. So it becomes quite draining. You feel as though you have a child, a second child, if you are a mother. And if you're not a mother, you feel like, oh, well, I just woke up one day with a 32-year-old child. And that's just that. And you don't want to do that, you know. So that's why it's important to balance out these energies in your own altar first, so that you're able to thrive in your career, your personal life, your friendships, as well as your family relationships. So do you understand the grounding and why I started with the elements? Yes. So after inviting your maternal grandmothers, you then invite your paternal grandfathers to now then say, hey, now I need you guys to bring the balance into my space. Because what your paternal grandfathers actually come with, they come with the wisdom, that decisiveness. Or else, if you're only operating from your feminine energy, once again, without your masculine energy, what happens is that you're awfully off balance. You're easily overwhelmed by situations, easily anxious, you're paranoid, you're afraid, you can't do things, you need to be held all the time. You're independent, but also you're very dependent. Either dependent on other people or dependent on spiritual stuff. You know, there is such a thing as being dependent on spiritual stuff. You trust the spirit to guide you more than your actual intuition, which is actually wrong, because you're still a human being. You still need to be able to have your own discernment. You must still be able to make your own decisions, your own sound decisions, with or without spirit. Whether or not you're a spiritual woman, you still, or a spiritual man, you still need to be able to make your own decisions. But ultimately, you're responsible for your life. You cannot hold spirit to account to say, but spirit, why did you allow me to go to medicine festival if you knew I was going to fall? No, you can't say that. You must still make a decision to say, it was raining, there's mud, okay, run away from the mud. Let's come here. Simple. Can't say, oh, but it was spirit. Spirit just led me to the mud and I just saw my legs go up and I didn't know. No, you can't. You still need to have your own mind and be decisive. Because there's also people who are just passive, overly passive. And you're just like, wake up. Here now, my grandmother used to say, come on now, here now, you didn't wake up. I'd be like, okay, I'm waking up now. She'd be like, you're just walking like you're sleepwalking. God damn it, wake up. I'd be like, okay, I'm waking up. So you don't want to be passive in life, but you also don't want to be aggressive either. No one wants to deal with aggressive energy. Come on, it's draining. It's literally draining. So you need to always just balance out your energies. And how you're going to balance it out is by calling your great grandfathers to come through with the wisdom. They knew what to do when there was war. They knew how to calm the minds of their women. They were scared. Some of them still went to war. They left their families behind. Some of them had to relocate, and that was very hard. Some of them had to work 5, 6, 7 jobs to upkeep the family. Some of them made great sacrifices. And some of them also went through a lot of trauma. They had to be men whilst they were boys. And that's not nice. They lost out on their childhood. So they are also coming through in their traumas. And often their traumas, when they come to us in our lives, it's the trauma of you feel guilty, that heavy guilt, that unshakable guilt. You want to live a life, but you also want to build a life. That's you operating in your masculine energy. Have you ever felt like there's that constant struggle, that tug of war in your life? I want to live, I'm still young, but also, oh, time is running away from me. I want to achieve this, but oh, yes, I still have to get married and have kids. Oh, no, I have to do this, but oh, I can't do that. I'm too old for that, or I'm too young for that. If you're having or struggling with making decisions, decisive decisions, it's because you're operating from masculine energy, but mostly your ancestral masculine energy is in deep trauma. And you need to be able to break out of it in order for you to just flow. If you make a decision, you make it. If you don't, you don't. It's okay. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. And if you don't, it's okay also. But if you constantly caught between the right and wrong, the guilt and non-guilt, then it means that your masculine energy coming from your generations is just still trapped in trauma. And you need to release it. You really need to release it. And how you would mostly release it is you would release it at the beginning of the cycle of a full moon. And a lot of people don't know that. Not when the moon is full, but at the beginning of the cycle of the full moon. How you would release the trauma of the grandmothers, you would release it on the day of the first full moon, not at the beginning of the cycle. So a lot of people have a way of purging at the beginning of the cycle of the full moon, but now you're mixing things because you're trying to heal both energies and center yourself all in one go, all in one cycle, but it's not coming together because you're doing it wrong. So the beginning of a full moon, the grandfathers. The sight of the first full moon, the grandmothers. Are we still together? Yes. Yes. 2 weeks before. Not the day, 2 weeks before. They need to be prepared. Remember, men are slightly stubborn. That's why they say as stubborn as a bull. So you need to grab it by the horns just a bit. Yes. Yes, the 2 weeks before.
So is that the grandfather?
Yes.
And then for the grandmothers, is that on the full moon?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes. So with the grandfathers, what you do is you want to do it outside and do your full moon bath outside, even though it's the preparation of the full moon or the preparation of the beginning of the full moon, but you want to do it outside. And you just want to find space. Even if you can't see it, it's still fine as long as you're outside and it's at night. Can I give you the times? Okay, before I give you the times, do you know the Lion's Gate? Oh, this is interesting. Someone didn't know what the Lion's Gate is, but I won't mention names. So does anyone want to tell me what the Lion's Gate is? And the times? Because we're specific to times now, not definitions. Times. No. No. Close though, but no. Okay. So, what many of you are not aware of is that each and every day the universe opens portals of the Lion's Gate. Those are special times. So, there's times where the gates open and there's times where the portal opens. So, let's start in the AMs. So, from 5 in the morning, the portal opens, and then at 6 in the morning, the Lion's Gate opens. So when the portal opens, it's a good portal. It's a portal of pure energy, of light energy. All you want to do is start preparing for whatever it is that you want to do, whether it be meditation, whether it be yoga, whether it be your prayers, whether it be your offerings. So you'd start preparing either from 5 right up until 6, or if you are already prepared, you can just start praying exactly or doing your rituals at 6. Those are your good portals. So there's 6 in the morning, there's 9 in the morning, and then there's 6 in the evening, and there's 9 in the evening, and then there's 3 a.m. in the morning. Those are all your Lion's Gates, the good ones. So there's 3 a.m., there's 6 a.m., there's 9 a.m. Those are all your good potholes. Whether you want to make your manifestations during the full moon, or you're just praying throughout, or it's not a full moon, it's just an ordinary day and you just want to pray, I would advise that you do whatever it is that you do around those times, because that's where your prayers will be intensified. That's where you'll be tied to your spiritual guides, and that's where spirits are actually opened on earth to just feel and flow freely and connect with you. So both spirit and ancestral spirits are opened for you at those times. Then there's 2 gates that I did not mention. 12 in the afternoon and 12 midnight. And there's a reason for that. Does anyone know why? Okay, nobody knows. So 12 is where the universe goes, let's open for everyone, both good and bad. That's why in ancient times, if you wanted to cast a spell, you'd cast it at midnight, around the full moon. It's intense because it's both energies. Both energies are very intense, the good and the bad. But it's not only spiritual, but it's also ancestral. That's why if someone were to cast a spell on you around midnight, around the full moon, it really takes a very hard and a very long time to get out. But also, if you set your intentions around that time, they're very good, they'll be solid, they'll be received by the universe, but also it's easy to get lost because both portals have been opened. So these two portals have got bad and good. So if the bad outweighs the good, then it's most likely that your messages are being lost. So you want to avoid the 12 in the afternoon and 12 midnight. You want to avoid those two and just start operating from any other one. Are we all in full agreement? Do you understand now why a lot of people say witches fly around at 12? Yes, that's their times. It's because of that mostly, but no one has ever really went into depth about it. So mostly it's because of that. So if now you're going to say you want to heal your trauma, your masculine trauma from your generations, you then choose any time. Could be in the morning, could be in the evening. It doesn't matter because you're outside. But if you're really intentional about it and you want to lock it in the universe as well as in the ancestral universe, you'd want to do it around 9 p.m. And the reason why I'm saying 9 p.m. is because the earth is back to being grounded. There's not a lot of noise. A lot of people are going to bed. A lot of people's minds are now calm. Their energies is grounded again. Even those around you are calm. So when you go into that space, you yourself, you're calm. You don't have work. You don't have to still eat or bath. You don't have pretty much more to do except just go to bed. So you'd want to lock in your affirmations or your prayer or releasing your prayers and your intentions, and then you go to bed. And you're most likely to receive a dream as a message of confirmation of the affirmation or the prayer that you just did. Does it make sense? Are we still together? Okay. Now for the grandmothers, you'd want to do it in the house because it's a familiar space. That's where they spent most of their time in. So you'd want to do it in your altar. You'd want to have a white candle representing purity and light, as well as fire. You want to have your bowl of water or your glass of water. You have your feather, you have your stone, or you have your crystals, and you hold it in your space. If you want, you can still have a book of mantras, a Bible, a Quran, a holy book, or whatever it is that you read that calms your mind. If you want, you can introduce sound as well. If you want to play something that is calming and soothing to you, you can do that as well. It's not a problem. Anything that will calm down your mind. And when you want to do it, you want to do it either around 6 p.m. or 3 p.m. or 3 a.m. or 6 in the morning. Because around those times, everything that a woman needs to do basically is done. She's done with the cooking or she's almost done. She's done with her day or she's about to begin her day. But mostly she's done. So her energy is calm. She's not tucking in the kids. She's not doing this. She's not doing that. She's calm. So even as an ancestor, she'll be able to relate to you, come through to you because she's in her calm energy. Whereas if you call her in any other times, she will come still, but then she'll come with that hesitation, and you don't want the spirit to come in hesitation. You want the spirit to come and just flow freely and be able to receive whatever it is that you have to offer in that space. Are we still together? I know that we are at the festival and it can be quite disturbing, but just try as much as you can to still hold the space for yourself and still pay attention and still ask as much questions as you can. Oh, yes, please.
I met a shaman and she was talking about with ancestral veneration to use a red. She uses a red candle because I'm trying to put together. Well, I've put together my altar, so don't like that. Don't like that. She said it was because the ancestors had passed on. She uses a red candle. Oh dear. I shall remove them from my altar by that look.
Sure.
Yes.
Even my spirit is just disturbed by that. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna try and calm my ancestors down because they're close to just um coming out. Their question has just evoked spirits, so I'm just trying my hardest to calm them down. But a red candle is a very dangerous candle. Um, you can command death with it. You can command full darkness with it. And anyone operating with that candle was either misled and given misinformation because it's not a good candle. And it's not a candle that we use. And it's not a candle that we freely advise people to use. So it's a very dangerous candle. And the reason why I decided to say let's rather stick to white is because white is pure. It represents light and purity. If you want to intensify it, you can introduce the blue candle, which is a representation of the higher powers and the powers of the sky. If you want to further intensify it, you then use green. And green is the powers of the universe and the powers of the earth. If you want to further go into it, you use pink. Pink is a representation of all your angel spirits and your child spirits or your children's spirits. If you want to go further into it, you use the mother of all candles, which is the universal candle, which is the purple candle, which is also good for your manifestations during a full moon. But you never go into red.
I'm glad I haven't lit it yet then.
You never go into red. Okay. I think also Spirit was just saying it's time for me to round up the session. Unfortunately, our time is done. So I don't know. Do we have 5 minutes for questions? Maybe. Are there any questions, actually? Let's sit down. Oh, quite a number of questions. Okay, I'll take 2, and then the rest I can take outside the space so that other people are still able to use the space. Is that okay? Yeah. Can I do the 2 of you outside the space? Great stuff. Can I do the 2 of you right now? Okay.
Nyabonga.
Kubonga mina mntu omdala.
I wasn't very good at Zulu, so excuse me. I just wanted to say thank you very much from a fellow South African. I moved here. Obviously, I have ancestors here, but I also have ancestors in Africa. And my spiritual journey has been around ancestors, doing mediumship. I don't have the privilege when I go into mediumship to light candles and do everything else. Is there any other suggestions that you could give me?
Yes, water. Water, but if you want to intensify your connection with them, water with rough salt or sea salt. Yes. Remember, we are water. When our people are laid to rest, their spirits go to the oceans. So, ocean water, or if you don't have ocean water, water with sea salt or just rough salt. You infuse it into your water. And what I would advise is you pray with it on a 3-day cycle. And on the last cycle, you bath with it. So you'll just infuse it with pure, clean water. Doesn't matter whether it's cold water or hot water. You just prepare a spiritual bath for yourself and cleanse yourself. That will also actually intensify your dreams and clear your thoughts as well as your intentions in your heart and start clearing your paths. It's also for everyone who just wants to do it. Yes. Wangami namtamtal.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, in some respects, are we here to represent our ancestors and for all the things that they may have done, we're here to bring them to peace?
Yes, we are the chosen ones.
Through our ancestors.
Yes. So every family has the beginning and the ending of a cycle. In this generation, we are the ending of a cycle. And we are also the beginning of a cycle. And that's why there's so much awakening. If you were to actually think about it, how many people were at the medicine festival last year? The number increased this year. 4 years back, there wasn't even a medicine festival. But it's because the world around globally is actually having a grand spiritual awakening, which is because our ancestral lineages and bloodlines are calling upon us as the last generation to either end cycles and begin new ones, or if we do not answer the call, they then continue. And most of those cycles, it's cycles of generational trauma, generational wrongdoing, curses, thinking, behavioral thoughts, patterns, and. You are called into your generation and bloodline to do better, to cause a greater cause of betterness, unitedness, unity, moving forward. Introduce compassion, love, kindness, light work, shadow work, also in the families and in the family units to bring the peace, to connect the family units again, because now family units are actually scattered. So we are the chosen ones. As we're sitting like this, we are the actual chosen ones. I can't hear you now.
I recently discovered that there are some of my ancestors who need a lot of help, a lot of sorting out.
Okay, would you want us to go into a private session with that?
If you have time, that'd be lovely.
Okay,
Thank you.
we can talk about it afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I do hope that you did enjoy our lovely session. Unfortunately, it had to be cut short, but hopefully sometime next year we can continue further. And please do try out every single thing that I have given you. I'll leave my contact details for any either of you who'd like to further the conversation or go into depth about it, because now I was just summarizing and just giving a general understanding of spirit as well as ancestral healing, as well as just the understanding of ancestral journeys and spirits. But if you'd like and you're interested to have further conversations, I do not mind to still have those conversations with you. Thank you so much for holding me.